Hey, good morning. Sorry. Sometimes my video starts slowly, and so I can sneak a cup of coffee before I get started. Hey, today is the sixth of the six major types of fear. Today we're talking about the third major type of fear. And this is one I have a lot of personal experience with. It's hard to admit, but I have a long history, actually my entire life. I've had a history now that I'm thinking about it and saying that. I was thinking just since my 20s, but that's not at all true. My first health thing I remember was when I was about 2. So I'll share that a little bit as I talk about this major source of fear for us human beings. And if you haven't guessed yet, it's the fear of ill health. The fear of ill health is the third of the 6 major types of fear that we experience as human beings. Remember, we've talked about poverty, we've talked about the fear of criticism, and today I'm going to talk about pretty much in depth the fear of ill health. And again, of all the types of fear, I personally have a lot of experience with this one. And so I'll share my personal experiences, even though that's really, really hard. I will admit it's hard to look at and understand your own personal fears, much less tell other people about them. So, fear of ill health. What is it? Where does it come from? I will share a little bit of Napoleon Hill's thinking on this so that you don't just think it's me making this stuff up. The fear of ill health or worrying about getting sick or having a disease or contacting something is really closely related to the fear of old age and the fear of death. Because at the root of the fear of ill health is the thought or the belief that if we get sick, we could die. And since death is such a huge unknown, that kind of adds fuel to the fire of the fears of becoming sick or becoming ill. I personally, and I just thought of this, but I always believe that I need to be a little bit heavy, have a little bit of extra weight on me, and it's in case I get sick, because I've seen so many people that if they're underweight or at a low body weight, when they get sick, they have no reserves for their body to call upon if they're so sick that they cannot eat. So I've carried around with me this strange belief that I've acquired, and I'm going to have to address it now that I just thought of it, that I need to have a few extra pounds on me so that if I get sick, I have some reserves. Now, this could be because I have had health challenges in my past. I have been sick, and the times when I was like thin in my early 20s or underweight, I had a harder time battling my way out of that and recovering from individual illnesses than when I was like a little bit chubbier. So, for example, I had a sudden cardiac arrest, and I was a little heavier than I normally am. I wasn't like obese, but I was a little bit heavier on the heavier side. And I recovered from that incident, even though that was the worst and most severe health incident I have personally ever experienced. Dying is as close as it gets to having the worst possible health experience that you can have. And I recovered from that relatively quickly, actually, compared to some of the other challenges that I've had in my past. So let's talk about the fear of ill health and where it comes from. Let's talk about the symptoms of ill health so that you can see if they're working their negative magic in your life. Because if they are, we want to stop that. I spend an inordinate amount of my time working with my health and dealing with my health because, now I know, because of my subconscious fears of ill health. So I am right along with you on this one. I need to knock these out of my life once and for all, because I'm obviously, based on the results I'm seeing and the experiences I've had in my life, I am truly, truly impacted by the fear of ill health. The fear of ill health can be traced both back to physical issues in our lives and then social heredity, things around us, all of the famines and things that we've had in the past, all the epidemics that we as a human species have experienced in the past. All of those leave an imprint on our consciousness, not just our individual consciousness, but on our global consciousness that feeds the fear of ill health. There's places in the world where people are starving, and there's famines, and there's disease, and there's diseases that we've eradicated in the United States that still exist in other parts of the world. And that all feeds this fear of ill health. He says a reputable physician estimated that 75% of all people who visit a physician for professional services are suffering from hypochondria, imaginary illness. It's been shown convincingly that fear of disease, even where there is not the slightest cause for fear, often produces the physical symptoms of the disease that's feared. Now, this is going to be a stretch for many people, and I will admit it was a stretch for me when I first heard it, because I have experienced some significantly traumatic physical ailments throughout my life, up to and including dying. I had a sudden cardiac arrest, was put in I ended up being in a coma. They froze me. They filter your blood through this new, very cool technology. They actually freeze your blood and circulate it through like a cooler and cool your body temperature down to protect your organs and to protect your brain. And I am one of the very few people that I'm actually pretty much all here, and I'm super grateful for that. But after that event, I studied and learned and researched and had to understand, because I wanted to understand, well, why did this happen to me and why am I still here? Because a lot of people, the vast, vast majority of people, like 93% of people that this happens to, they aren't here. They aren't here to find out why and how it happened and then what to do about it to make sure that it doesn't happen in the future. And so that became my mission for, about 5 years, was understanding and learning and trying to figure out what the heck is going on in my life and then with other human beings so that I can make a positive impact on others so that they don't have to experience diseases and illnesses and death to live an awesome life or live the life that they want to live. Powerful, and so I'm going to read a couple things from Napoleon because I want you to know that I learned these from many, many sources, but as I look, a lot of the summarization of those sources and where these sources spring from, the ones at least in my experience of studying in lifetime, can be traced back to this particular book, Think and Grow Rich, because a lot of the ideas and thoughts were first expressed on a mass basis through Napoleon Hill's writings in Think and Grow Rich. Powerful and mighty is the human mind. It builds or it destroys. Playing upon this common weakness of fear of ill health, dispensers of patent medicine have reaped fortunes. This form of imposition upon credulous humanity became so prevalent some 20 years ago that Collier Weekly magazine conducted a bitter campaign against some of the worst offenders in the patent medicine business. Okay, pharmaceutical industry, don't even get me started. This has been going on since 20 years before Napoleon Hill published this. So since 1917 or sooner, patent medicine, which AKA pharmaceutical industry, it's what we call it today, has been perpetrating and selling and feeding into this humanity's natural fear of ill health and profiting to the tune of billions and trillions of dollars nowadays. Actually, during a flu epidemic, the mayor of New York City actually met with the media and asked them to not post any like scary headlines or epidemic type headlines because so many people were reading the headlines and getting sick. Even people that weren't exposed to the flu or the epidemic were getting sick and getting symptoms and actually dying. And so the mayor met with all of the media and beseeched them to please not publish any scary headlines. And that is actually what they credit the reduction of the flu and then that finally going away. Actually, scientists have conducted lots and lots of experiments on the power of our mind and how it impacts what actually appears and manifests in our life. That's kind of what this whole book is about, is that what we think about is what we create in our lives. What we think about often becomes our beliefs, and our beliefs fed with emotions, actually our beliefs impact our emotions, and the stronger our emotions then send those messages to our subconscious, and our subconscious then creates and manifests those things in our life. Now, I didn't believe this. I mean, I vaguely heard about it and understood it on a very bizarre subconscious level, but most of my life, up until the point of my sudden cardiac arrest, which was in 2010, was pretty much like everybody else. I just was going with the flow, kind of believed what happened to me. I had experienced lots of things that I actually created in my life, but I didn't think I was creating it. I believed it was luck or just the way things were, or I had some lucky breaks. I didn't really understand that I was either creating those by thinking about what I wanted, or I was creating what I was getting by default by not thinking about what I wanted, and just whatever happened because of what other people were thinking and believing and feeling and doing and saying was creating what was occurring in my life. Coffee, cloggy throat. So there's a lot of evidence that we create our own lives. We create everything in our lives and in our experiences. And you don't have to take my word for that. Please don't take my word for that. Go out, research, study, investigate. Use yourself as a science experiment. I say that all the time because I know that I am my own greatest science experiment, and I want to encourage you to be your own greatest science experiment. Don't believe what other people say, me or anyone else. You know, I love Tony Robbins, but everything he says that I choose whether I'm going to buy into or not, I test out on myself. I try it, and I see if it works for me. I do that with pretty much everything I hear now from anybody. I don't take what other people say or do with face value. I ask myself, is that true for me? And that's a really good habit to get into, because what's true for Tony or Sam or Jackie or Jennifer might totally be not true for me. So you have to know and understand what works for you, because all of us are different. And that is especially true of our health and our thinking. Our health, all of us are unique, totally unique. And yeah, we have a lot of similarities, but we're all a unique combination of cells and thoughts and beings. And, you know, everybody uses the snowflake analogy, but it's incredible to believe that nature doesn't make any two snowflakes that are identical. Well, if any two snowflakes, which are really made up of water cells, which is a very simple chemical compound, are all different, imagine the possibilities and the variability in human beings and the human cells. I mean, we're made up of, I don't remember, hundreds of billions or trillions of cells that are dying and being reborn every day or recreated every day. So it's not a stretch to imagine that we are all so unique and different. Back onto the topic at hand. There's overwhelming evidence that disease sometimes begins in the form of negative thought impulse. Wow. Let's say that again. There is overwhelming evidence, and this was back in 1937. So think about all the evidence there is now. And this was not where I started when I started my search for understanding and my search for meaning after my major health event. This I just came about as part of a team again. We're doing Think and Grow Rich as a team building exercise. We're reading the book together and discussing it. And so when I came across this, it just triggered for me all of the other sources of information I've found since 1937 on my own journey and my own quest for understanding that support this statement. And there is overwhelming evidence that disease sometimes begin in the form of negative thought impulse. Now here's the tricky part. People often think that this means you create your own disease in you, but that's not so. You might be the source of it, but guess what? The really scary part is the source might be something outside of you. It might be energy and impulses that are sneaking into your subconscious from other people or from other people around you. So, for example, say I live with a very, very negative spouse, somebody who's just a curmudgeon and super duper negative, and I'm the sweetest person in the whole wide world, but I might find that I have cancer, not because of my negative thoughts and beliefs, but just because I've been around a very negative person or a very negative spouse. That's the really scary part about the fear of ill health and this fear. Is it such impulses may be passed from one mind to another by suggestion or created by an individual in his own mind. So again, I might be creating my own illnesses. I personally think, and I hate to say it, but I will take 100% responsibility for creating all the illnesses in my life. That's super duper hard to admit. But by admitting that and by understanding that, I actually realize and understand how freaking powerful I am. And if I can create, and this was what this is the turning point for me, was the day that I realized that if I can create a death experience for myself and still be here to talk about it, what the heck else can't I manifest? I can manifest whatever I freaking want, right? Because that's about as powerful as it gets, is to be able to die and still be here. And, you know, you may or may not agree with me. You might think I'm full of it, but this is my personal experience, and that has led me to believe what I believe about thinking, positive thinking, negative thinking, and the results that we have in our lives. The seed of fear of ill health lives in every human mind. Every one of us has inherently in our beings and in our, I don't know if it comes in with our soul or what, this fear of ill health. And it's just as a human being. So it's not in our, I would say it's not a part of our soul and our big beingness, but it is a part of our human experience. Worry, fear, discouragement, disappointment in love and business affairs cause this seed to germinate and grow. The recent business depression kept the doctors on the run. Remember, he wrote this right after the depression. Because every form of negative thinking may cause ill health. Whoa, every form of negative thinking may cause ill health. Well, now, if that isn't a reason to focus and think about and filter your personal thinking to make sure that you don't experience ill health. Disappointments in business and in love stand at the head of the list of causes of fear of ill health. And he gives some examples of a man who had a bad love experience and was sick and dying in the hospital. And they gave him a pretty nurse who he fell in love with. And then all of a sudden he was cured in 3 weeks. So there's a lot. The world is riddled with, I'm sure, hundreds of thousands of examples of how negative thinking has led to ill health and how a change in that thinking has caused a miraculous cure. I contend that I am a miraculous cure. And that's because I went from just living and not really paying attention or thinking about my thinking. And so a lot of my thinking was negative, even though I thought I was a positive, upbeat person. Guess what? Wrong. A lot of my thinking was doubt, fear, worry, lack, scarcity, poverty, fear of criticism, fear of ill health, maybe a little bit of fear of old age and death, which we'll talk about in the next couple of days. But I definitely had a fear of ill health for decades. So what are the symptoms of ill health? If disappointments in love and business can lead to illness, if disappointments in our life and our experiences and negative thinking can lead to ill health, what are the symptoms of ill health in our lives that we need to look for so that we make sure we're doing something and taking steps to counteract those sneaky little types of ill health that can come into our life? And again, remember, it might not just be our thinking, but if we have our thinking clean and clear and we're not letting these symptoms show up in our life, that does wonders for creating a bubble around us to protect us from other people's and society's thoughts and fears and doubts and worries about ill health. So the first symptom of the almost universal fear of ill health, because it is almost universal. Almost everyone has a fear of ill health. Stephen Jobs died of a very challenging battle after a very challenging battle with cancer. So he obviously had a fear of ill health. And I'm going to make a bold statement here, if you're sick in any way, shape, or form, if you have illness in any form in your life right now, if you're suffering from anything, pain, disease, cold, flu, blemishes, if your face is breaking out, dry skin, oily skin, dry hair, oily hair, aches and pains in any way, shape, or form, those are in-your-face, blatant examples of the fear of ill health operating in your life. And again, it may be your fear of ill health or stress. Stress is a huge creator of physical illness. Is stress a positive or a negative emotion for most of us? Absolutely negative. I admit that stress in my life, and if I were to track stress, I would notice that most of my health challenges, my severe health challenges, occurred at a high point of stress in my life during that period. Off topic. Autosuggestion is the first symptom of fear of ill health. So, as I read this, ask yourself, am I exhibiting any of these symptoms? Autosuggestion, the habit of negative use of self-suggestion by looking for and expecting to find the symptoms of all kinds of disease. Do you think if your child is in daycare and they're exposed to more colds and flus and viruses, do you think that you're more susceptible or more likely to get a cold or flu or virus from your child that's in daycare? Enjoying imaginary illness and speaking of it as if being real. Do you ever express fear of getting a cold, or that, oh, the colds are going around, the flu's going around, it's just a matter of time until I get it? The habit of trying all fads and isms recommended by others as having therapeutic value. Okay, millions and millions, if not billions of people fall prey to this every day. How many people start a fad diet every single day? How many people fall for the latest, greatest health thing that's going around? For example, I have inflammation and joint challenges sometimes. So I was researching and found that curcumin and turmeric are the hot new things to deal with inflammation. So, of course, as I research it, I start to notice it and see all kinds of things popping up about turmeric and curcumin. And it's just another thing. I mean, if you go back and do any research at all, you'll see that like every year for sure, a couple times a year, some new magic berry or magic cream or magic supplement is being touted as the be-all and end-all and the cure-all for everybody who has any type of ailments whatsoever. You know, the acai berries, the grains, the gluten-free diets, any of that would be examples of playing on people's fear of ill health, actually. Talking to others of operations, accidents, or other forms of illness. Okay, I'm spending a whole video talking about my illnesses and my health. So do I still have a fear of ill health? Heck yeah, I do. So I know I need to do something about it. Experimenting with diets, physical exercise, reducing systems without professional guidance, trying home remedies, patent medicines, and quack remedies. Yeah, done some of those. The second symptom of fear of ill health in your life is hypochondria, the habit of talking of illness, concentrating the mind upon disease, and expecting its appearance until a nervous break occurs. Nothing that comes in bottles can cure this condition. It is brought on by your mind. By negative thinking, and nothing but positive thought can effect a cure. Hypochondria, a medical term for imaginary disease, is said to do as much damage on occasion as the disease one fears might do. Most so-called cases of nerves or anxiety are or come from imaginary illness. Now, here's the rub with hypochondria. If you believe that you're going to die or have a disease or having a heart attack or an anxiety attack or I can't remember the word for it right now, you will create those physical symptoms in your body as if you are experiencing the disease itself. And it can be as damaging as if you actually had the disease. Now, I sort of believe that if you think about a disease enough, you can create it in your life. If you're worried and scared about getting cancer, you're attracting it. The more you're thinking about cancer or heart disease or obesity or the flu, cold, virus, you are opening yourself up to the possibility of that coming into your life. I'm going to tell you, don't experiment with that. This is one I'm going to tell you, do not try on your own, because I guarantee if you do it, you'll get it, and I don't want that to happen to anybody. Exercise is the third symptom of fear of illness or fear of ill health. Fear of ill health often interferes with proper physical exercise and results in overweight by causing one to avoid outdoor life. Now, this isn't that you shouldn't exercise. It is, are you avoiding exercise because you're afraid or because you're not feeling well? I mean, I may have made the excuse that I had a headache or a migraine, and that was my reason for not going to the health club back in my younger days. Now, no matter how crappy I feel, I'm doing something every day. I'm going to either go for a walk, and my favorite is to go for a walk out in nature, but you know, it's 10 below today, so I'm not going for a walk out in nature. But I will go down and I'll get on my exercise bike or I'll get on the treadmill. I'm going to do something, and today my right hip hurts. I don't even want to think about it because I know that thinking about it will give it more negative energy and it's going to hurt. And so it doesn't matter. I know that exercise is going to make me feel better, so I'm not going to use the excuse that my hip hurts. I'm going to go down, I'm going to get on the exercise bike, and I'm going to work out that particular ache or pain. Susceptibility is the next symptom of fear of ill health. Fear of ill health breaks down nature's body resistance and creates a favorable condition for any form of disease one may contact. The fear of ill health often is related to the fear of poverty, especially in the case of hypochondriac, who constantly worries about the possibility of having to pay doctor's bills, hospital bills, etc. This type of person spends much time preparing for sickness, talking about death, saving money for cemetery lots and burial expenses, etc. So fear of ill health makes us more susceptible to ill health. It opens us up, just like I was saying, it opens us up to the possibility of ill health coming into our life. Self-coddling is the next symptom. The habit of making a bid for sympathy using imaginary illness as the lure. People often resort to this trick to avoid work. The habit of feigning illness to cover plain laziness or to serve as an alibi for lack of ambition. Now this one's kind of tricky because self-coddling is different than self-care. If you've already got issues in your life, say for example, migraines, chronic pain, illness, if you've been in an accident, you need to take care of yourself. And taking care of yourself to heal and get better based on knowing what the root cause of the problem is or the pain or what's going on in your life or the illness, you need to take care of yourself and get better. And that's different than self-coddling. A lot of people who experience chronic pain get accused of self-coddling, and that's absolutely off base and wrong. There's a big difference between taking care of yourself and self-coddling. I spent 50 years not taking care of myself or taking care of myself minimally, and because of that lack of attention to my physical being, I died. And that is different than self-coddling. Now I take care of myself. I put myself and my health above other things that I think are important in my life, everything, because I know that if I'm dead, I'm not achieving or doing anything that I want to accomplish on the planet in this life experience. So to me, the alternative is take care of yourself or be dead. And until I reached that point of decision, I didn't take care of myself. And so to me, there's a difference. There's a big difference between self-care, self-love, and self-coddling and making excuses. One is negative energy, negative thinking, and one is absolutely positive love toward yourself and positive thinking. Intemperance is the last symptom of fear of ill health. And here's the interesting thing about intemperance. If you're intemperate, meaning you drink too much or you take narcotics or you smoke cigarettes, because that's a biggie now, or you smoke drugs or pot and things, that intemperance actually can be the cause of ill health, such as, the habit of using alcohol or narcotics to destroy pain, such as headaches, neuralgia, etc., instead of eliminating the cause, actually causes more disease and more issues and more health challenges and ill health. So if I drink to take my mind off my worry about becoming ill, guess what? I might drink too much, and then all of a sudden I find myself with my head in the toilet bowl because I had too much, and now I have created that illness in my life by participating in activities and things that are absolutely positively not in my own best interest. And again, everybody's different. Some people actually thrive on a drink a day or a glass of wine. I recently discovered that red wine is actually good for me and my blood type. So I don't drink red wine every day, but I have a glass or two a month, and I'm not afraid of it. I don't think it's going to cause me any ill health or damage because it's actually good for my particular being and my blood type. That's just a whole nother topic. So that's it. That is fear of ill health. And I guess I was going to, it's hard, but I was going to share a little bit about, and I've shared some things about my personal journey with ill health. And as I was beginning this, I recalled I have personally had health challenges and health issues my entire life. I was thinking back, and whenever I do this timeline exercise with people that I'm discussing health with and chronic pain and things. And what you do is you take a piece of paper and you make a line, and on it you map out the key experiences in your life, the highlights and the lowlights of your life, and you just write down the events. Then after you do the events, you go through that and you think about what were my emotions at each of those events. And I usually rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, either positive 10 or minus 10, depending on what I was feeling. So for example, if I was in a car accident, which I was in a car accident when I was about 20, I don't know, 25 maybe, 26, I got T-boned and was in a car accident and big old fat lip and swollen face and things. But if I think about then the emotion and what was going on in my life when that happened, I rate that on a positive 10 being love. Positive emotions would be the most positive, grateful, whatever emotion times. Like say, for example, the birth of my children would be a positive 10 because that was awesome. That was the best, most wonderful experience that I can imagine. So that gets a positive 10. The car accident, that was probably like a -5 or something. And so there's probably things going on in my life that caused that accident or that impacted and made it possible for me to be involved in that accident. So then I do that with emotions. I think about, well, what were the emotions for each of those major events in my life? Then I go through and I map on that timeline particular illnesses or, for example, surgeries. I map on mine. And you know, there's whole periods of my life, like a couple year periods where I had huge health challenges in my 20s, and it was a really dark time. And if I think about that time, I'll notice that when I map that, my emotions, like for example, my sudden cardiac arrest, my emotions were like a -10 when that event happened in my life. I was going through a whole bunch of stuff, and it all culminated, and I noticed after the fact, of course, and I knew it as I was going through it, but for about a 3-week period up to and leading to that pinnacle event, I had a whole lot of negative thoughts, doubts, worries, and fears swirling around in my life. It was just a really tumultuous time in my life, and I kept telling myself, I remember telling myself, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. And I was telling myself that probably hundreds of times a day. Maybe not, it wasn't out loud, but it was going on in my head. It was playing over and over and over again because there were so many things putting pressure on me, and I didn't know what to do. Although I did know what to do, I didn't think, and I kept telling myself I didn't know what to do. So then after I do this, I analyze the map, and I look for trends, and I look for things that are going on. And if I am honest and really brutally honest with myself, there is a direct correlation between the amount of negative thinking that I am having at a particular time, the amount of negative emotions I'm feeling at a particular time, and the amount of illnesses or health events that I've had in my life. I mean, if you look at my maps, and I don't have them here, I've done it a couple times in the past. I'm going to do it again coming up as part of a training and coaching session. We're going to map out our lives. And I think most everyone will find that there is a direct correlation between our negative emotions, our negative feelings, how strong those emotions and feelings are, and the significant emotional events in our lives. And it works both negatively and positively. And when you see that for your life mapped out, and you know that it's your life and your personal experiences, it takes it out of the pages of a book by someone who, come on, he studied 25,000 people over 25 years. So I think he has a very good understanding of the human thoughts, brains, strategies for success, fears, and can make conclusions and draw conclusions for all of us. And he experimented on his own life with these things. He didn't just observe these things in other people. He applied these strategies and principles in his own life. And obviously has had incredible results since 15 million copies or so of this book have been sold. And this book is from 1937. So that's it. So that's been my experience, is that this is all absolutely true. And the more negative I am and the more scared or worried or fearful I am, because come on, fear is a negative emotion. Fear is the most negative emotion that we can have. And the most negative thoughts we can have are fear-based thoughts. So analyze yourself today. Go ahead, start mapping out your timeline of your life, and maybe pay attention with respect to health. Do it just with respect to health issues in your life. And if you've been one of the very fortunate people to have never had any health issues or challenges, I mean, I know people that have never had a headache in their entire life. I am so excited for them and so want to know how they do it. But mostly, if I observe those people, it's because they are positive, genuine, loving, grateful, amazing people. And that's what they think, and that's the bubble they place around themselves. So things like headaches don't get in. So start guarding yourself and shielding yourself against negative thinking, negative emotions, and see what kind of an impact it has on your life. That's what I'm doing today. Have an awesome day, and I will see you tomorrow with our next major cause of fear, or major type of fear that shows up in our lives. And it's something that none of us can avoid, unless, of course, we have the alternative, which is death. And I will contend that's not a good alternative. So join me tomorrow, and we will talk about the next major cause of fear. Have an awesome day. Let's knock this ill health one out of our lives, and I'll see you tomorrow.